Okay. All right. All right. No, we're live on Facebook. I'm just gonna put a little intro out so we can share out. Then I'm gonna bring our guest on, Hone Edmonds. Long time no see. We'll be right back. All right, we got Hone Edmonds in the house. I'm going to pull him up in just a second. I just want to thank everybody for your continued love and support and contributions that allow us to keep doing this every single day. And as we move towards what we've been talking about for quite a while, that is the realm's first 24/7, 365, multiple channel, handheld, accessible network, universal cast network. Our brother Aaron Pearson's working on it, and we've got a he's putting a whole lot of work into the back end. It's totally customized from the ground up. It's going to be an independent stream, an independent private server, and we're not going to have any constrictions at all from the controlled social media. But we'll talk about that more as time goes on. It's getting closer, and we all know there's no linear, so there's no rush. It's all going to be in perfect flow. Let's get Hone up here. He's got some exciting stories for us, I know. Let's see here. Let me unmute you. What's up, brother?
Hi, Todd.
How you doing, man? Long time no see. Do
It has been, and it's really. Oh, I'm hearing two voices. I'm hearing two Todds.
you have Facebook open?
I should close that.
Yeah, that's what's
I'll
happening.
I'll close that down, and I'll open you back up.
Yeah, yeah. The Facebook. If you turn it on, just mute the Facebook.
Ah,
Yeah, that's all you got to do. You can still have it on. Excuse me. I'm having a throat chakra activation here. Got 47 people in the house. Hello, everybody. It's good to see you. We've had two great shows today. We're going to end it with Hone. So
oh,
you, can you hear me? Are you still getting two voices?
I'm still getting two voices. 1 second.
Yeah. Just yeah. If you have the Facebook Live on, you've got the Zoom open. If you got the Facebook Live on, just go to the Facebook Live and mute it. If you want to keep it on, you don't.
Oh,
You know,
so keep. Do you want me to close Facebook down?
well, you can close Facebook. Yeah, that'll stop it. You just shut it down because you're in Zoom, but
There we
it's on.
go.
Yeah, it's on Facebook, so we're good. A lot of new
How's that?
faces. There must a lot of new faces here, or I hadn't seen some of them in a while. So, can you are you good now?
Yeah, can you see me?
Yeah, I can see you perfectly.
Oh, I can't see me, so that's even better.
Well, you can go up to the top right corner and you can click on.
Launch Zoom.
No, no, no! Don't launch Zoom. You're in
Oh,
Zoom. You're good.
oh,
Just leave it like it is. You don't have to look at yourself. It's
no, I
easier.
don't need to look at myself.
It's easier that way.
Yeah.
Um, so you and I did copy and paste the post that you put on your page underneath the post announcement. You I'm not going to try to pronounce the words, but well, you're Maori and you have a retreat. You have access to tribal lands. You've talked about it on the shows before. And every January you go for a 30-day period, or give or take. You invited me. This is the second year in a row I've missed because I haven't quite figured out how to break out of the U.S. matrix yet, but I believe we'll be able to make the next one. I feel it. But anyway, you've got some, we're going to talk about that a little bit. I just want to tell everybody, if you don't know Honey, he's an accomplished author. You can go to his page, Honey Edmonds, and I believe you got an author page too on Facebook. And we can cover that at the end of the show. If you got a website, we'll pull it up on the screen. But I think in reading through that very quickly, and thank you for the very kind and somewhat exaggerated description of me. That was good. That was really good. But it is good to see you, and I want to hear what happened or whatever you want to talk about.
Oh, it's so good to see you too, Todd. And just want to thank you for having me on the show again. It's always a privilege, and it's nice to be back in Aotearoa, New Zealand again for a brief period. And it was really fun. It was a wonderful experience, not just for people that had beautiful souls that had been to Timitara at the retreat over the last few years, but also to have some beautiful new souls come on board and to experience the pureness and the serenity and sacredness of what it's like to be in a very ancient rainforest.
Well, I can't. I haven't been there yet. Of course, I spent 10 months in Kauai and was able to experience a lot of sacred uh, environments, and of course, with that came a lot of dimensional and interdimensional experiences. That, but I know in talking with you and some other people how important New Zealand is, and particularly the Maori, um, in its culture and tradition. Now, you take, I think, 3 or 4 sets of people for like a week at a time, and you actually go into the tribal land, and no cell phones, no nothing really. And what's that like?
It's yeah, it's tribal land. It's the largest national park in the North Island of Aotearoa, New Zealand, and so it has no houses. There's no hotels. There's no cars. You don't see anything but forests and this incredibly um, large lake that has numerous other lakes around it, and also 300 meters above Lake Waikaremoana is another lake which is called a healing lake of Waikariiti, and that's quite a different lake. It's got a power that's unique to itself, and it's noted as being a healing lake for Maori tribes back in the years since they traveled the oceans far across almost 2,000 years ago. And that lake is when you go into that region of Waikariiti, it's white sand. It's clear, crystal clear water, and it's just white sand. And I've seen some pictures of recent trips that we've done up there, and sometimes it makes you think, is this a photograph of Fiji? Because it doesn't look like it's in a lake. It looks like it's in the ocean.
Wow.
So that's really, it's full of lots of beautiful sights when we get there. Gorgeous waterfalls, and we have a waterfall that's quite close to Timitara, which is it's about a 10-minute boat ride to get to this particular waterfall called Korokoro. And yeah, it's really enjoyable to take many of our sacred group to Korokoro, particularly those who have never been there before.
Do people have? It's probably a dumb question, but I would imagine there would have to be some profound experiences occur when when you guys go into the land. I mean, into the lake and that type of thing.
It affects people in different ways. I mean, you know, living in the wilderness for me, you take the 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 pluses, and I suppose you call the minuses, the highs and the lows that go with living in the wilderness, just like it's the same as living with the highs and lows of living in the matrix. And sometimes you can be in rain for a period of time and being a rainforest, and then after a bit of seclusion for a period of days, you can come out and you'd have, you know, weeks of just incredibly beautiful, dry, warm weather. And this is why we select January as being the time to do that.
That's summer over there, isn't it?
It's summer over here, it sure
Yeah.
is. And summer came a little bit late this particular year, and as we know, the weather patterns change year by year. And so for some of the new people, they find it very hard to kind of get into that frequency of getting used to what it's like to not just sleeping on the earth, but also to become used to the wild animals that are creeping around your campsite or around your tent. It's no different to having cars and dogs barking when you're living in the matrix, but in the
What
forest.
kind of animals are there?
What kind of animals?
Yeah.
We don't have tigers or lions or elephants, so you got no fear of being squashed or eaten. But there's you'll hear kiwi, and kiwi is our national bird, and they tend to become active. They're a nighttime bird, so they're very noisy in the evening. And we went on our last few days there. We went with a couple of other of our beautiful soul emissaries, Jenny and Dan, and we went into the forests with our red lights, because you need to have a red light, because white light scares them away, to try and locate them. But they went really quiet when we got them close to them, and as soon as we left them again, they started playing up and poking tongues and saying, we caught you out.
Wow.
But there's possums. They're always creeping around and in the trees, which they're considered a pest in New Zealand. And so we went there with the mission of being able to try and get some of those numbers down, which we did over that month, and it was quite successful doing that, particularly on the within the confines of Timisoara. So we're very happy that we've reduced the population of possums there, and we discussed many things about how to become more comfortable in the wilderness, because I mean, our ancestors have been living in the wilderness, and when I say our ancestors, but our ancestors meaning on the collective, on the world scale, no matter what lands you come from, have been living in this way for thousands and thousands of years. So it's nothing that's too foreign to us when we realize the beauty and the serenity of what it's like living in a forest and in such a pure and pristine environment, to being able to reconnect back into that vibration of total harmony, and there's a sense of freedom, there's timelessness there, because we don't have the ability to have Wi-Fi, and we choose not to have Wi-Fi. We make that quite clear, that everything is guided by the sun, and so we know when it's time for us to kind of gather and have our breakfast. We know when it's time to go for our hikes in the mountains and among the trees, and we know exactly when it's time to prepare our food for the evening before the sun goes down, and that allows us to, by the time the sun has gone down and the stars are out, we can just sit in our gathering around the fire and share and do satsang.
Now, did you introduce any of the Maori, oral tradition or share anything? Because since the last time we talked, I've had I don't know if you know Huna Flash. He goes by Huna Flash now. Big Huna is what I call him, but he's got the HI Foundation around the world to set up some Huna houses and such. But he talks about the history of New Zealand and how it was once part of Lemuria, how it was connected to the Hawaiian Islands and other places in that area. In fact, when I was in Kauai, there was a storyboard that talked about how the natives found these islands by canoe and by following the stars and studying the weather patterns and such. Um, and I know that's a very, very sacred place. And I would imagine a lot like Kauai in the sense that it is somewhat confrontational. I don't mean that in a bad way necessarily, but I guess it depends on who you are or what part of the journey you're at. But I mean, do you see people when they get into this atmosphere begin to start getting more real, and do things come up and as they might when their environment quiets down?
It does. It takes, even for me, if I just going into it anywhere for the first time, it will take about 2 or 3 days to really connect entirely into that vibration of being in what we call the Ngahere or Papatūānuku or Gaia, Mother Earth. And so it's always that settling in period, which takes a few days to finally being able to dislocate all the cords that connect us to the matrix so we can become nature itself.
Yeah.
You do find that your senses become a lot more heightened. You have this beautiful aroma filling you of the trees, of the forest floor, and the sounds of nature. And you have this incredible presence of timelessness, that nothing is in a hurry anymore. There are no schedules. And those who attend are free to do whatever they want and in their own time. So when we decide to go on hikes, for example, or we call hikois, we don't say we're going at this particular time every day or every morning. We just go when everyone is ready to go. And then we do that sharing of what you were talking about before, of how of the deep connection that Maori have with our connection to our ancestors, our tupuna, we call it, and also how that connection relates to Mother Earth, with our Sky Father, Ranginui, and also the connection of going back thousands and thousands of years to those periods where you talk about Lemuria, which, of course, Lemuria was a civilization that that reigned an incredibly long time ago. As far as I am aware, that was centered in in that large region of the Indian Ocean. What Huna, which Huna sounds like it's a very cool name, because Tahuna means the sands. So when you said his name was Huna, I think of the nice soft wispy sands being blown by the wind. And Huna talks about Lemuria, which is true. And I think what we also need to realize too is that in the South Pacific was a very large continent called the land of Mu.
Mu, yeah.
And Mu was about 3 times the size of Australia. It could be more or less, but somewhere in that vicinity in terms of the expanse of what the civilization of Mu was like. And when there are 2 parts to Mu, is the wisdom that and holding that Mu had, and the second one is what are the remnants of Mu now, and the remnants of Mu can be seen in the Maungas or the Monas in Hawaii, which is the mountains.
Yeah.
They are those peaks, not just in Hawaii, but also in one of the islands in Tonga. I'm just trying to think of the name. I think it's called, it's a very similar name to Mu actually, Ua.
Ua.
Ua. And that's a mountain island as well, and it's the only rainforest in the Tonga constellation of islands there, and also in the islands of Rarotonga and Tahiti particularly.
Wow.
There are also mountains there which are all part of that same continent, remnants of what we see now as Mu. The rest has gone under the ocean.
Yeah. Yeah. We haven't communicated in a few months. I know we tried to, but I remember I was in Kauai and the first part of last year, and we talked a bit. My wife and I had almost immediately had some interdimensional experiences. I don't know what you want to call it. Very much Mu or Lemurian. I'm not really sure. But they were very vivid. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because there seems to be quite a few people, including yourself, because I know that you also do some tours and stuff in Turkey, in that area. But people moving or going to different places, sacred spots, important parts of the ley lines and grid and that type of thing. And there seems to be a more visible or clear correlation into what's happening in the present. Almost like the past and the future, the present, everything's merging. Now you get around quite a bit, and I know you've been well versed in not only the Maori, but also we talked last time about what was going on in Turkey and the importance of that place that you were. I can't remember the name of it, but after I talked to you about it, I saw it everywhere I went. It was in the papers, it was in the internet. So I guess what I'm getting at is, where do you see things now? Do you see because I know when we first talked, we had a really cool conversation about what's going on now, how it correlates to the past, to the things that you were made aware of through your heritage and such. Where do you think we are now? And do you think where do you think we're going with this thing?
I suppose the first sign, as soon as you said that came to me was 2 words: never forget. Never forget who we are. And for those who are not sure what that means by that, is understanding that we're not our careers, we're not our standing in society, we're not our the letters that we have beside our name. If you're in a profession, we're even not what we see ourselves as being lost or depressed or unhappy or confused in our life, because those are all just the parts of what the past journey that we've had in our life has been created upon ourselves to believe it as being an idea or a concept or a belief. And so if we can push that aside and just realize that we are individually a sprinkling of stardust that comes from a more divine, powerful, wondrous cosmos that's set in this construct of consciousness, a collective consciousness. And even the thought of being different colored skins to one another, coming from different cultures, that doesn't mean anything either. It's because it's what's inside here that connects us all to that oneness, that beautiful oneness of divinity. And so how do we match ourselves from that recognition based on the wisdom that our ancient civilizations that we all belong to, not just Maori people, but people from all around the world, come to this realization that there were a set of practices, laws, divine laws that was pretty much, as we say, set in concrete many thousands and even to the point of 1.5 million years earlier by these ancient civilizations. And it still is quite compounding to me to understand that, you know, we've had Stonehenge, we've had the Nibiru pyramids, we've also had that connection with the constellations of the stars, the Pleiades, so on, Sirius, Orion, Lyra. Those star constellations is where all this information is coming from. And these ancient civilizations of that period were in a far better connection that we have, and that the human world has with what we have, like Wi-Fi and this type of communication, because it's a very linear type of communication compared to the type of connection that our ancestors had. And so the Giza pyramids, Stonehenge, Machu Picchu, and the many other sacred sites around the world, and others are still popping up. And you just touched briefly on the one in the far east of Turkey, which has only recently been open to the public, which I've had the lovely opportunity of going to see, which is Göbekli Tepe. And that was a period where humanity had no bowls back then. But for some reason, and so in other words, they were hunter-gatherers. They were just eating wild plants. They were capturing their animals to eat and pretty much just eating them from the fire. They weren't actually eating them from a plate or a bowl and that type of thing. But yet they had this divine mission to build this sanctuary, this temple in this far east region of Turkey, and because nobody lived in Göbekli Tepe. People traveled to Göbekli Tepe. There is no evidence of people actually living there, but it was a place where ceremonies were held and communion was held. And there even looks like there's evidence that sacrifices were made of some description. But the rock circles are no different to what you would see in places such as Stonehenge.
Wow.
The two large plates, which I think that are around about 5 meters high, and then you've got the 12 larger oval-shaped circles around the outside. They all mean something, and when you look into each of those rock sculptures, there's carvings on those sculptures that seem to signify that they're similar inscriptions and symbols and pictures that have also been found in other parts of the world. And one that comes to mind is in Australia, with the Aboriginals.
That's fascinating.
And to think that you know, our kōrero, our talk of where our people came from before they came to Aotearoa across the Pacific, you know, to places such as Hawaii and to Rarotonga and to Tahiti and so on down to into the South Pacific. We must have come from somewhere. And from the genealogy and tracing back, we found that we had traveled through India as well, and then originally from Egypt.
Wow.
But now, since the revelation and discovery of Gobekli Tepe, we have now found that our people had come from further afield, and that region obviously is in that Far East region of Turkey where Gobekli Tepe is. And the reason I say this is because here in Aotearoa, our women have this carving, not carving, a tattoo on their chin called a moko. And they also have some also have a tattoo in their third eye. And when you go to Gobekli Tepe, when you go to Haran and other places in the far east of Turkey, you see some of these women, the old women, with these same tattoos on their chin.
Wow.
And the tattoos here and a few here. And they'll look at you and they'll say, your people you didn't call yourself what you call yourself now. You're one of us. Don't forget that. And when it's like when you hear a wise woman look at you in the eye, you listen, because they're telling you something you need to listen to, because they don't just impart that wisdom onto somebody like a general tourist. If they feel like that you've got the connection and you've got that wonder, that knowing, that thirst of wanting to find out more about all of us, where we come from and what was held in that wisdom, you know, they will only share it with people who they believe needs to know the information.
Yeah.
And I find that powerful.
That's fascinating, you know, and then listening to you as well, these are ancestors. Um, you know, I think about it today. So today you have many people more every day who are having active communication with star family, you know, be it Lyra or Sirius or Pleiadian. It sounds to me like that regardless of how primitive we might think these ancestors were, that they had by your description, a more direct line and consistent line of communication with the star family, with our further ancestors, or however you want to put it. And I gotta think that there's got to be a direct relationship to these sacred sites that are found in different parts of the world that have some of the same characteristics, to include these tattoos that you're talking about. And maybe these elder women are intuitively knowing who to speak to because they maybe have that part of their DNA. I don't know, but it's really fascinating um, to hear that, because I never really thought about that. But I guess if they had a uh, more alignment than we do, or more um, you know cohesiveness with the star family, they must have had the same with the animals, with the plants, and all that.
And and the reason they do this is because it's not just to say that we belong as one people on this earth, but why? And why did we come to this earth?
Yeah.
What was the purpose of coming here? And I think that really gets down to the real essence of the whole purpose of what our life, our truth of our meaning is in regards to living life with one foot in the matrix and one foot in this incredible connection with this
Yeah.
powerful wisdom. And then because the ultimate goal really is to slowly move this other foot across that line, so we are feet completely founded into the same dimensional frequency that these ancient wise civilizations also knew. What was that purpose? Well, that purpose essentially is to understand that, number one, is the stars come from a place of love and wisdom, and that when we come to the earth, we are to plant those seeds of love and wisdom and sharing and connectedness on the earth. But unfortunately, over the last 100 to 150 years, the humanity has been, I guess, lured, enticed into a completely different trajectory now, to where they're locked into a system that humanity either has to bear living in it, or they find a way of being able to crawl themselves out of it.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was probably a little bit easier for me, because when my heart stopped and I'd been in a coma, and then I came out of the coma, I'd lost quite a large number of years of my old life. And so, and also my beliefs had been erased as well too. And so, and ideas about myself. And so there was this intuitive desire to wanting to live in nature, because when I came out of the coma, the noise and the pollution of cities, I couldn't relate to that. It was like a lot of noise in my head that I didn't feel that comfortable in, and it was always this drawing myself to wanting to get into the wilderness, into nature, into the pristine, crystal clear waters, to spend time in the ocean. And not just to visit these places for an afternoon, but to actually spend days and weeks, and then over a period of time going there as often as I can. So I'm spending less time in the city life than I am in what I see as being a place of complete connection and incredible
Yeah, no doubt.
harmony.
No doubt. I'm with you on that. I'm with
So
you
it's
on
all
that.
about essentially it's all about bringing us back to this love space, and of planting the seeds on the planet that reflect what the stars are like and what the stars tend to want to show us, and before we can move on to our next journey. But again, it's being able to cut away the karmic binds that hold us hostage, because that's, again, is one of our roles, is to dismantle all these beliefs and these entrenchments that we have in our life, so we don't have to come back in the next life having to go back into the classroom to learn those lessons that we could have easily have learned in our previous life.
Yeah, you started to basically answering the question I had formulated in my head. So here we go with the telepathy. But I was going to ask you, and you probably covered most of this, and I don't know if I asked you this before, but because I know there's a lot of oral tradition, tremendous amount of oral tradition, oral history in the Maori tribe, like other ancient cultures. Is there anything in that oral history, in that culture, that points to these times, that points to the purpose of what we're doing here, or the purpose of these times?
We touch on, and we as meaning Maori, we touch on that even today in our conversations, in our kōrero, and aroha is the backbone of the essence of what it's important for us to hold on to. Aroha is love, and that love is no different to love seen throughout the earth, throughout the planet.
Mm.
And that is the largest book yet to be read that has been little read. It love is the incredible mystery that even I find new chapters in how not just how great and how wondrous love is, but also how nurturing and powerful love can be when we are able to just completely open up ourselves to the power of this great mystical invisible force. And so Maoris, when you get to understand the realm, I suppose you can call it, where Maori operate in, must come from a place of subservience to the fact that aroha has no ego. Aroha does operate on a place of being able to listen. And this is why we, as Maori people prior to colonization, didn't have a written language. It was all done by, we call kanohi ki te kanohi, and being face to face. And that's the most important aspect of it, because if someone needs to know certain informations of who they are, what their directional purpose is, it cannot be done by simply just reading a book according to Maori. Yeah. It must be done by meeting with what we call a tohunga, like a person who's got that wisdom and can hold that space for you, and able to find a little bit more about opening the paths to being able to help them in their journey to sliding that foot across that matrix border. So you've got 2 feet firmly in that mystical realm of what mirrors us in nature.
It's like a greater transparency. Is there
greater transparency?
Is there any reference at all to elementals in the Maori history?
Elementals?
Elementals like fairies, dragons, little people, the elders, Sasquatch, that type of stuff.
The Maori people, we have, and it's quite prevalent in Te Urewera as well too, where we are, or we were. They have fairies. These fairies are have been here longer than Maori, and they are referred to. This is a long name, so you have to practice saying this name, but they're called Patupairehi. And the Patupairehi come out only at night time. There have been many occasions where they have been sighted. They are probably around about 3 feet tall, no larger, and they live in the forest underground.
Wow!
They come out just after the sun has set, and then they have waka, boats, canoes, and they fish.
Wow! And
from some of the kōrero that has been passed down of recent times is that they taught Maori how to make nets.
Wow!
And so if that was the case, the Patupairehi must have also been prevalent in places such as Hawaii and Tahiti and Rarotonga.
Well, there's talk about how the elementals were visible, even if you talk about Lemuria and Mu. There's talk about how they lived side by side, basically, and that's reemerging. Does the contemporary Maori speak of anything that's happening in the present. And I'll refer back to, I think it was about 2 months ago or 3 months ago. I remember seeing there was that volcanic eruption in New Zealand. And there was a article and a video that I watched of a 51, 52-year-old Maori chief. And he talked about what was happening, that it was, and he referred to the volcano, I believe, in the feminine,
Mm,
and said that, you know, this is, and I don't remember everything about it. It was not a very specific article or video, but that this was the beginning of something. Is
mm.
there anything in their present contemporary, um, you know, uh, in this time that where they're saying that they're expecting something to happen or they're seeing something happening?
Mm. Yeah, it's as sad as it was when that island erupted. It's erupted before. The reason that um, so many people were uh, perished in that eruption, that was only a few months ago now when it happened, was the fact that it's very close to the mainland, and that it's always it's an active volcano,
Okay.
and people like to go there to walk around the volcano. It's become a tourist draw card for many tourists that come into that region, particularly by cruise ships. And so, um, I mean, I think people have to be aware that number one is that you have to be very careful in nature wherever you go,
Yeah.
just like you would in New York, just like you would in Istanbul. And so, but it's also important to realize that, again, we have to listen to what our old people say. That has been there for a very, very long time, and they've been quite vocal about, is that people should not go onto these um, these these are holy and sacred sites, but they're also very dangerous sites. And you're right, it's a feminine. In Maori, as Maori stories go, is it is this volcano, this particular volcano. I'm just lost to know the name of this one because it's a small one, but it's big in the scale of its eruption.
Mm.
But what I found was that it lies on a ley line that runs that particular island, as does Te Urawera, and does another mountain, Mona, down in southwestland called Takitimu. That forms a upside down or inverted pyramid that starts from Giza and it goes right across to Bermuda.
Wow.
So it's like an upside down pyramid. It only appears upside down to us because of our I guess the way that we objectify the earth as being upside down. We don't know really where it's up. We
True.
don't know exactly where it's down because we're sitting in this, we're living in a sphere.
Yeah.
When you're in space, it's like timelessness. What is time? What is up?
Yeah.
What is down? And so this pyramid ley line runs from Giza to Bermuda, and what runs in the middle of that, through that line, is an ancient city called the Forgotten City,
I've heard of
which
that.
is in China. That ley line then comes from Bermuda and goes down through Chichen Itza in Mexico, and then it goes directly through Tahiti, and it goes directly through that volcano in here in Aotearoa. It goes through to Urawera, where we were, and goes down to Takitimu Mountain in the south. And then that ley line goes back up into the northwest again, back to Giza, which goes through Uluru, directly through Uluru. And it also goes through another sacred Aboriginal mountain called Ditol, which is in southern New South Wales, which is a box-shaped mountain at the very top. And I'm still looking now at, there are other ley line, pyramid ley lines that are also connecting up, and that might be a project that I'll look at doing later on this year as the year goes.
That's fascinating.
Mm.
Now, I think you've, if I remember, 3 books. How many books have you written?
2, and there's one, and perhaps even 2 coming out this year. I'd like to do 2 this year. One's a set of beautiful healing cards. And if you give me a moment, Todd, I'll just grab an example of what the cards look like, because we've just been doing some beautiful work with our beautiful photographer and artistic director, Robert Van. So I'll be back in a second.
Right on. Fascinating stuff. I'd love to see where his research goes with these that upside down pyramid ley line. Fascinating. I gotta say too, a lot of people are talking about ascension and how we're going to be regenerating and growing younger. I'm growing older, but you sure look like you're growing younger.
It's I guess I'm not really into age, to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, and sometimes you meet a young baby or see a young child who just holds this incredible space of wisdom. And there was a few of the children that came to Timitara. I felt esteemed and very revered being in their presence, and particularly the ones that just sat and just, all I could see in them was the Buddha.
Wow.
And then you meet people that are in their adult age group and even older. We have nothing really much to talk about except blah blah blah. And
I shared a funny meme the other day. It was a little kid sitting next to an old person, and the little kid says to the old person, "Yeah, I didn't believe in reincarnation when I was your age either." But yeah, these young people that are coming into the world now, they are something very special.
They are, and there's much anticipation that can be seen now in the next generation coming through.
Yeah.
And that will also occur in the generation coming through them and the generation through them. So this signifies this massive but gradual change that's occurring on the planet as we start to move ourselves away from the claws of this thing known as the Matrix. Yeah. And so in that process, again, healing is required, and healing is not just for particular people, so to speak, but healing is what everyone is expected to do, even if you are a healer yourself. And yes. So in that process, with the artistic wonder and magic that Robert Vandertoe holds, these are some of the cards that he's designed, that all I'm doing is putting text to it. And I'm not quite sure if I can't see myself. I don't know if this is...
You're perfect right there. I'm going to put you on screen by yourself. Go ahead.
But that's just an example of some of the cards that Robert has done. And so this one here is to do with feelings.
Wow.
This one here is to do with cleansing. Hmm. This one is to do with, this is the total, this is to do with clarity. And now, as you can see in these cards, this is the Kohi Kohi, which is all about accountability. These are photographs which are taken from the rainforest here.
Is that right?
And I think they're called macro photography.
Wow.
This one's called Akia, which is about peace. And you can see the peace sign just in those leaves. Mm. And so Yeah, so this is a beautiful project that I'm just so thrilled to be part of, and we're working on having these healing cards completed this year, and
Very
also
original. I like those a lot. They're very original. Now, your other two books, what are the subjects on those two books for everybody so they can know?
the first one is Beyond the Horizon, Into the Light, Return from Death. So it's pretty much my story,
Yeah, I remember
and
that. Yeah.
it took it took uh, it, it took me a few years to agree the fact that I wanted to actually share that story, because it was quite private and it was very personal. That whole experience of, I guess, number one is being able to comprehend the journey, because it was so fantastical that uh, that it, 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 it took me, it seemed to take me a while before, to get it truly into my being of what that journey comprised of. And it was, again, it's this Maori aspect, is that I didn't feel safe wanting to share it with anybody, particularly the media. And so I kind of kept myself safe for that period. But then when I was approached by the publisher to share that story as a book, I think it was another 4 or 5 years before I got around to writing that first book. Because I was in rehabilitation for a couple of years, I had severe brain damage, and
Wow.
the broken bones were nothing. It was just more the fact that I had lost so much memory, and I was having trouble walking. My ability to stand walking downstairs was almost impossible in that time, and I pretty much had the mind of a 2-year-old child back then. And I think it's important that we try and retain that childlike um, curiosity in all of us as we get older, because I think that's what keeps us young.
That's fascinating.
And we tend to realize that life is all about playfulness, and we don't need to take life so seriously. And so when I did that first book came out, it was nice to put that down into words. But I guess by I don't know if it was by choice or by accident, I left quite a lot of portions of that story out, and I put it into the novel, a historical novel, which became The Emissaries. That's quite a big book. It's almost 700 pages. So
The
uh,
emissaries, beast of the code.
Beasts of the Code.
Yeah.
And so there's a main character. The story centers around this main character, who himself has he comes from an immigrant family from a war-torn land of Lithuania, and they travel to New Zealand, and he becomes a professor in physics, and then he falls in love, and he has an accident, quite a serious accident in Australia, and he has this profound near-death experience. And so many of the things that I never shared in my first book, I shared the rest of my journey through that particular character and through a couple of other characters in that story. And
It sounds like a saga. 700 pages. I mean, I used to read a whole lot, but there was probably 3 or 4 or 5 favorite books I had that were several hundred pages, 1,000 pages, that sound very similar in the energy to what you're describing.
mm,
This is your group, your public group, JHB Edmonds, author, spiritual teacher.
mm,
This is the book in the center. I don't know if you can see it, but the audience can see it. The Emissaries, Beast of the Code. That's a Hay House. Is that Hay House?
it is.
Yeah. Congratulations.
And it was a real honor to write that story, and it was also beautiful to be able to, I guess, entwine the wisdom of all these ancient civilizations throughout the world, and what they were continually trying to remind those in the story and the leaders of the world what needed to be done, but it was quite a big wall for because of the emissaries' mission in the story as it goes was to find out what was causing so much disharmony in the world, that as the emissaries were finding out more evidence of who was behind this whole scheme, this cult of the secretive cabal, the more these walls were placed up in front of them, to the point that their lives were becoming threatened by them. As we know, we know about what happened to Abraham Lincoln. We know what happened to JFK. We know what happened to Martin Luther King and with Malcolm X and many other people, John Lennon and so forth. And so it's a very heart-wrenching story. It can be heartbreaking sometimes, and it can also be quite inspiring and beautiful in times, because it's a beautiful love story that's weaved through that story. And I'm always asked by people that have read the book is, we got to the last page, but it didn't actually tells us what happens next.
I like movies and books like that. I do. Of course, a lot of times I'll use it for a sequel, but I like what you said. Now, where can people find these two books? Or are they? Do you have a website, or do they?
They can either, they can either just go on Amazon. Okay. I think Amazon's one of the most popular. I think there's Barnes and Nobles and there's I think there's also I'm just lost. There's quite a number of internet booksellers on the web that my mind's just gone blank.
And you also do you do sessions as well? Do you do private sessions with people?
I do when I'm not in the wilderness, and when I'm not working. But generally, if they just flick me a message, I can make a time to do some counselling and some healing with them. So it's available.
Yeah, and then so you have the one with the healing cards coming up, and possibly another one coming up.
Yeah, the other book is called Alone, 21 Days in the Wilderness. And I think the reason that this book was written was the fact that, I'd done after coming out of the coma, I'd done a number of retreats. And so silent retreats and wilderness retreats and all kinds of different retreats. And I felt like I wanted something more. I was satisfied, but there was something I just needed. It was like the icing of the cake. You were eating the cake, but you didn't have the icing on it. And it wasn't until I discovered that for me to do the purest of all retreats was to do it alone in the wilderness, and silent.
You did that?
I did that 2 years ago now.
And you were in silence for 21 days.
Well, I mean, you can't stop talking to the birds, and you can't you can't just not fall on your knees and say thank you to the universe when you see a beautiful morning sunrise, and you've just got this whole encapsulating space of stillness and pureness around you, and you're just alone in this expansive wilderness that takes 2.5 days to walk out of it. And
wow. 2.5 days. Whoa.
And so, I mean, just that aspect alone for many people, it's because I think in my old life, I probably would have had those fears. But when you're in a place like Aotearoa, you don't have lions, you don't have snakes and elephants and things like that. And you're pretty safe in the forest here. The main thing is just being able to keep yourself in a nice, comfortable tent, really, and just be at one with nature. So that was I guess in the first couple of nights alone, that was a little bit of a challenge, but all those fears just completely disappeared. And the whole 3 weeks alone in the wilderness, I got a lot of writing done, and it went very fast.
Sounds profound. I'm not sure if I'm ready to do it, but I'm going to get my issues taken care of this year, and I hope to go next year with you.
Come to the retreat, and then after that, again, this is a challenge that I put out to people, that the souls that have come on the retreats, where they come here or they come and do a retreat in Turkey. The next one is to then give it a go, and now that they've learnt those basic skills of how to survive with a group of people, the next one is being able to go that one step further and living exactly how our ancient people used to live, and just being able to live in that pure, to be immersed in that pure harmony of nature alone, and it changes your life dramatically. Incredibly.
I bet. Powerful, man. Powerful stuff. It's good seeing you, brother.
Good to see you too, Todd.
I look forward to the next time we can get together, maybe, 3 or 4 months, see what's happening. We're kind of running by the seat of our pants over here. So, but everything's working out in perfect alignment. I wish you the best, and your beloved partner. Wish you both the best. And thank you for being an inspiration to me and other people. And I'll catch you. I'll catch you when I catch you. You take care.
Thanks, Todd. Much love.
All right, man.
Take care.
All right. See you later.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.